welcome to North Country Politics, Episode 11. I'm your host, Mike Willett from Colebrook, Coas District 3, and my co-host, Representative Arnold Davis from Milan, Coas
District 2.
Always one ahead of me.
Trying. Gotta get up early in the morning for that. Mike, want to let out Nicholas Bridle. Let him know that winter's back up here in the North Country, and I'm not dressed up today. We're dressed for warmth.
Well, it's April 20th, and we had 4 inches of snow, so I've got my turtleneck on, my sweatshirt.
There you go.
And I needed it.
All right. So, a couple of things. Tomorrow we've got a Senate hearing. It's it's House Bill 1078, the Gold Star Father and Family Plate. Prime sponsor, Mike Murphy. He'll be coming down with us. He's back from Florida. I'm really excited about this. It's a really feel-good bill, and I feel pretty confident we're going to get it through the Senate tomorrow.
I don't think there's any doubt. And I have a little bit of a hard time with this bill just because listen to the testimony and knowing the background behind it, it's very, very emotional. And it's a little bit hard to talk about. You know, this had to do with young man, Mr. Groen from Gorham, and losing his life in the service of this country, and this is going to allow, there is a Gold Star Mother plate right now, and this will have a Gold Star Father plates and brothers and sisters, and these kids have given the ultimate sacrifice, and it's just a small token of my appreciation and gratitude that we can do something like this.
Yeah, and this is way beyond just a license plate. This is about respect and remembrance of a fallen loved one. So it's and the governor is fully on board. So she's pushing for this too to get through. So that's always a big help.
100%. We didn't have a session last week, so there's a few bills coming up this week that just to go over real quick. One of them is Senate Bill 505, and it's really kind of it's a two-part bill, and two things got mashed together that don't necessarily belong together, but they're both good things in the bill. One of them is that in New Hampshire, to be a licensed guide, you have some field tests and some written tests to get through, and you have to be a person of good character. So you have to have a background check, and right now you have a background check, and anybody can see your background check at Fish and Game. And all this bill will do on this part of it is to say that you have to be in the law enforcement part of Fish and Game to see someone's background checked and see what their history is. It's not open to everybody.
That's right.
And that's a good thing. I support that. The other part of the bill, it's going to get rid of the temporary OHRV registrations in New Hampshire. And at first, I was a little concerned about it. Wasn't really sure. But there's about 3,300 temporary registrations in New Hampshire last year, 10-day registrations. And the biggest percentage of them, people had bought 2 or more times. Now, that was a pilot program put in 10 years ago when the OHRV business started, and they weren't sure how it was going to go, whether we needed a temporary registration or not. And but this came from Fish and Game and come from NOVA, our legislative branch of watchdogs, an organization, that they want to get rid of it, and for a couple reasons. Right now, you can get a temporary registration in Maine. It's $100. Or you can get one in Vermont, but they don't have one in Vermont. You pay the full registration. And I've traveled in West Virginia and Kentucky. There you pay the full registration. And with this temporary registration, what kind of hurt the sport a little bit is that not one single penny went to the trails. It went to administration for the Bureau of Trails. It went to Fish and Game for the licenses and tags and for law enforcement. But not one penny got back to the trails. So by getting rid of that, it's going to basically put $75,000 more into the trail system in the state of New Hampshire.
Nice.
And we've all seen what's going on with the state of Maine and their weight limits and everything else. And I think it's going to be profitable for the state of New Hampshire to get rid of it. So I'm hoping that'll pass.
Good. Yeah, you got my support. I've got one what were they thinking bill this week. It came through my committee, Resource, Recreation, and Development, Senate Bill 450. and it's a state parks pilot program for recovery centers and community mental health centers. It provides a 3-year pilot program for state parks passes. This came out of committee, recommended ITL 12-2. Now, this is a perfect example of people putting in bills that there's no need for. We can already do this. We don't need a bill to say this. So that being said, my favorite part of the show, what were they thinking?
What were you thinking? Were you thinking?
I don't know how many bills we had this year that
It
we've gone
was
through.
over 1,100. And I was there that day for the testimony on that bill, and it was very poorly planned, very poorly proposed, and there was just a lot of holes. It was not good legislation, and I think the worst part about it is, it cost us $1,700 to get that through committee, and it made no sense. It shouldn't have even been there. It's a waste of our taxpayers' dollars.
That's right. Exactly.
One of the big bills coming through this week, and very controversial bill, is open enrollment for schools.
Yes. Yep.
And, all the schools that I've talked with in New Hampshire, they're all against it. And I know that even in the North Country, a lot of our schools said, well, we will take one student in, but we won't let any of our students go. And there's a few fallacies about this, and I think that short term, it could hurt some schools, but I think long term, it's going to help most schools. And I'll explain why. So if I've got a student in Berlin and decides he wants to open enrollment, wants to go to Gorham. So what happens is the state support for that student goes directly to Gorham. It does not go through the Berlin School District. It goes straight to Gorham. And so Gorham gets that money for that student. But at the same time, Berlin saves money because they don't have to educate that student. And what they're looking at they think only 1% to 2% of the students in the state of New Hampshire are even going to try to
I
be part
agree
of
with
this.
that. That's what other states have found.
And another big thing we hear is, well, geez, what if you have a kid with special needs going to a different school? How's it fair that new school is going to have to pick up that cost? And the way this bill's proposed is, if a kid has an IEP, which is a kid that has a special educational program or plan, and the sending school, the kid goes to the receiving school, the sending school is still on the hook for the cost for that, and through state and federal grants. But the sending school is still on the hook. So that kid can go to that receiving school without putting burden on the receiving school, and without any cost to the receiving school. It all comes with an IEP, comes from the sending school, which again will be covered by grants from the federal and state government.
Mike, I've got a question for you. So the fear is schools will lose students. Now tell me, in the business world, what are these schools doing to attract kids to their school? If the fear is there's a record number of homeschoolers, charter school members going to other schools, why? What do you need to do to attract them back?
Well, and that's part of the whole story. Is yes, everybody's afraid we're going to lose students, but the students aren't vanishing in midair. They're going somewhere, so someone's gaining students, and gaining the money goes with them. So they're not. Yes, you're losing their enrollment, but somebody else is gaining them. And if I'm a school and I've got a chance to pick up 10 kids, and I know that the average state aid come to kids between the educational fund, the reduced meals costs, and everything else that goes with it is $9,100. And if I can have 10 kids come to my school, I've just picked up $100,000 in budget that's going to my school. And
money.
Being a school board member, I've got a fiduciary responsibility to get as much money to make our school run as good as we can. So I'm happy I would be happy to take them. And the schools that are so fearful about losing their kids, why? A few years ago, California, a lot of states have open enrollment, but California, Ohio, and Wisconsin, I did a little research. And when they went to open enrollment, a lot of schools lost their kids, lost students to other schools. But over the next 6 years, they responded by improving their programs and attracted those kids back.
Perfect.
And that's what I think the key is don't be fearful of losing your kids. And it's going to hurt. There's no question. But on the other hand, what are we going to do to get those kids back?
Well, this bill, in my opinion, would force these schools to better themselves, to have to try to make the kids want to come back to their school.
I agree 100%. 100%. So I think it's a wash because every school that loses some kids, somebody else is gaining them and getting the money goes with them. It's not that money's not just disappearing.
Yeah.
It's just going somewhere else. And I think, it's just like in business. If you've got a coffee shop A on this side of the street and coffee shop B on that side of the street, who's going to get the business? Who's ever getting the best product at the best price? And I think that we can almost look at a simplistic way. Our school's the same thing. If you're getting a good product at a good price, that's where they're going to go.
Yeah. And now, where does the adequacy come into this? Like our school ratings aren't very high.
No, and I think that's what we're going to see. When the schools start getting competitive for students, as a parent, and I think all parents are the same, we want the best for our kids and want the best education. And when you have kids, schools with a 15 and 17% proficiency rating, well, you know what? My kid's not getting into Harvard with a 17% reading proficiency rating. And I think that once the schools are improving and get those ratings up and really attract these kids, I think it makes our whole community better.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to have to happen.
Yep.
A couple of the bills coming up this week that I'm really happy about is Senate Bill 534. And it's such a common sense bill. Why it never has come up before or hasn't been instituted, I don't know. But it prohibits foreign funding in election matters, whether it's local or state. So it keeps the foreign people out of our elections and their money. And that's a big deal. There's no one foreigner that should have any say in what we do here.
That's a no-brainer. What's the reason a foreign entity would get involved in our elections? I mean, that doesn't make sense unless there's some funny business going on. Now that came out of committee, ought to pass as amended, 18-0. That's not on the consent calendar.
It's not. Why it's not, I don't know, but it is not.
There's no fiscal note with it.
There's no fiscal note. So somebody's got there's somebody in the background trying to get this turned down, and I think they're going to have a hard time.
Yeah. Yeah. I have, it's not relative to a bill, but I have a constituent from Errol. He has a boat. They go on Lake Mbagog all summer. Now, Lake Mbagog, like many different bodies of water in New Hampshire, borders New Hampshire and Maine. Mm-hmm. So we register our boats in New Hampshire, and built into the registration fee, there's an exotic plant and milfoil that you fund those programs. So you get one sticker. It's your registration sticker. Covers your registration and the exotic plants. Put that on your boat. You go, most lakes is fine, but you go on a dual lake like Lake Mbagog where it borders Maine and New Hampshire. Maine requires, in Maine you pay your boat registration, and then if you're a resident of Maine, you pay an additional $10 for the milfoil sticker. So they get two stickers on their boats. Now they reciprocate with other states as long as they have a milfoil program. Well, we have one, but they don't recognize ours because we don't have a sticker. They can't wrap their head around the concept we have one sticker that covers both. They want two separate stickers. So New Hampshire residents, going to put your boat in Lake Mbagog, you have to pay the Maine milfoil, which they charge us $59 a year. I don't see that fair. So I checked with, believe it or not, it's the Department of Transportation. It's our friend John Morosco. They handle the boat registrations. So I talked to him about it, and he said, well, we really can't, as a legislator, I can't mandate that Maine residents do anything. Yet they've somehow mandated us to have to buy their sticker, and I'm not sure why that is. So maybe through rulemaking, I'm trying to find a way to get Maine to accept our registration, which has the milfoil in it, as the proper sticker. something as simple as that.
Are you sure that that $59 from the out-of-state residents, knowing Maine and their governor, Janet Mills, isn't going to Somali Leering centers in Lewiston or something?
It's possible. It's possible. But so residents pay $10. New Hampshire residents pay $59 to the state of Maine. Now, the ironic thing about it at Lake and Bagog, in Maine, they have no boat access, but they have to come to New Hampshire to get on the lake. So why are we paying them?
Well, maybe we ought to start instituting
Tolls?
a dock fee, or you're right there at the landing on Bagog.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
So, it's the same thing. I had a constituent ask me about, and it was kind of an interesting concept, and I've been thinking about it. And when a newborn is born, you have a child, you can buy a lifetime hunting license or fishing license for that child as long as you do it before they're a year old.
Yep.
And I was amazed how many people do that.
It's a good program.
Absolutely. And but I got approached by a lady and from down in Milton, and she wrote me a letter, and I've been thinking on it and trying to figure out how to do it. But it's to get lifetime hunting and fishing licenses for foster kids. And the more I think about it, the more I like it.
Yeah.
A family that has taken a foster kid, a lot of times it's a financial burden. And somehow, if we can figure a way to get that kid a hunting fishing license and get him in the woods, off the streets, out of the video games, and head in the right direction, I see that as a real win-win.
I like it, yeah.
So that's something we'll work on for the next session if I get reelected.
Yeah. You got my vote, Mike.
So I think that's going to wrap it up for today.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
It's great seeing you. And same thing, if you have any questions or concerns or any proposed legislation you'd like us to look at, feel free to send us an email or any comments. We're glad to take them. Yeah. If not, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.